You're listening to The Coaching Divas, a podcast for everyone navigating the twists and turns of corporate life.
Follow along as we chat through common workplace situations and extend the coach approach to help you handle them with ease.
We offer a cross-sectional view that spans generations, positions, workplaces, and lifestyles.
We're your hosts,
Claudia Jones,
Daniela Velkovic,
and Misha Jethba, and we are
The Coaching Divas.
Welcome back to The Coaching Divas, where we dive deep into strategies and insights to help you thrive at work and beyond. As the year winds down and the holiday season looms, it's easy to feel like time is slipping away. But the truth is, there's still plenty of time to make a meaningful impact. In today's episode, we're talking about finishing the year strong. So grab a coffee, get comfortable, and let's dive into how you can finish the year strong, set yourself up for success in the new year.
Excellent topic, Misha.
I guess, what are the top three things that come to mind when you hear that intro?
Top three? I would say for me, it would mean, how do I not fizzle out at the end of the year? How do I still show up strong? And what does strong mean? And also, how do I set myself up for success for next year?
I think some of the things that come up for me are, if I'm struggling, how do I just make it to, quote unquote, the Christmas break, the holiday break? That comes up for me. The other is more managing my mental health, emotional, physical, all of that. The other is, if I've got big deadlines, big deliverables, how do I keep the pace? How do I make sure I don't lose that momentum? And then similar to Claudia, it's now that I've done that or gotten to the holiday break, how am I making sure that when I come back in the new year, I'm starting strong as well? So I've finished strong, but I'm starting strong as well. I know where I want to focus and what I want to do, and I'm not in a lull come the new year.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And then for me, the three that come up is a bit of reflection on what have the last 11 months been like, and how do I align if I'm missing anything for the next 4 weeks. The second one that comes up for me is, am I where I want to be? And what do I want the next year to look like?
That's a good one.
Thank you. And then the third one, I think, is, am I happy? Which I've always struggled to ask, because if I'm unhappy, am I acknowledging that the year was a failure?
That's a loaded one. Am I happy?
From a work context, am I happy?
Because I was going to ask you, your second bullet about, is this where I want to be? And your last one about, am I happy? How are those two different?
Well, I think and again, this is my own bias. It's come up. You're always, and I always think of some of the folks that I've been coaching, or even with the career panel I was on this week. What I'm realizing is that quite a few individuals that I've come across, they're just in a contentment state. They're not necessarily invigorated by where they're at. That's one thing. For me, the end of the year kind of implies, and this is my own perspective on it. I put in 11 months into something, because most of it work off of a calendar year. I'm going to get my bonus both based on the work that I've done. Am I confident that I've put enough of myself into whatever it is that I'm doing? Or are my fears holding me back? And then the I am happy. I think it's a question that all of us should be asking ourselves often, because each of us is going to be dealing with different challenges, right? Mm-hmm. And reflecting on the past year, am I happy? Is my family happy where we're at? Am I happy with what the work I'm doing? Am I happy with the way I'm being challenged or not? And something I don't think people actually ask from a work perspective. I mean, even on a personal level with relationships, it's very loaded. But, maybe happiness is I get my regular paycheck, and that's good. So I think it's a very, very personal and subjective statement that each of us can think about or elaborate on for ourselves.
Yeah, in my own experience, there's a point in time in my life where those two questions had two very different answers. So am I where I want to be at? Yeah. On paper, I have the title I wanted, I have the responsibility I wanted, and yeah, I was where, and I put in quotes, where I planned to be, what my goals were. And so the answer to that question would have been like, yeah, I'm where I wanted to be at. This is what I set out to do. But then if I asked myself, but am I happy? The answer was no, because now that I had gotten there, I didn't realize what a toll it would take in other areas of my life. Or I didn't realize how much I would have preference for some aspects of the work and not others. But if my job was heavily skewed towards the things I didn't enjoy doing, am I really happy? Am I really feeling like I'm making an impact and enjoying what I'm doing? And so that question of, am I happy, is a great starting point to either do the reflection or to do the reflection and set expectations for yourself of, okay, now that I've made those reflections and gotten the insights of, okay, even though I'm where I wanted to be at, if I'm not truly happy, what areas am I not happy in, and what am I going to do about that? How am I going to change that? How am I going to adjust? So contextually, I wasn't happy in how much work-life balance I had. I've talked about this on previous episodes. I used to live to work. I didn't work to live.
Mm-hmm.
And so I needed to find a way to rebalance that. I didn't love everything I did. That reflection, that year-end reflection of, am I happy? And then what am I going to do about it if I'm not? Changed my entire career trajectory. It's actually why I'm a coach and why I do what I do.
Wow.
But I had to ask myself the question of, am I where I want to be at? Sure, yeah. Past plans, me check. We did it. But you're not happy.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting to think about the fact that that plan you put in place was probably a plan you put in place, what, 5+ years ago? And
oh my God. Yeah.
Right?
More than that.
More than that.
Almost 10.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you have to almost say to yourself, you know what? I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago. And I think people have a hard time reflecting on that, to say, you know what, 10 years ago, I was here right out of school or out of a different relationship or out of a company I loved or didn't love. So this is the new plan. And it almost forces us to kind of go back and come up with a new 5-10 year plan, because we're not the same people we were back then. And so our goals have changed, our ambitions have changed, who do we want to be in 10 years has changed. So I think it's interesting that they are two different questions, and that we do need to almost do some self-reflection and just say, you know what, where do I want to be in 5 years? Was I happy with my 10-year plan from before? And what can I do to change it? Or a lot of times when I work with my clients and they want to change or this, the question I always ask them is, what's missing? What's missing going forward? Why is this not the plan anymore? What part of it is missing for you? And they're like, oh, I never thought of it that way before. What is missing? Why am I not happy? I got the title, I've got the salary, I've got the responsibilities, but why aren't I happy? What's missing?
Yeah.
Right. So I always find that an interesting part.
I'd also offer as well that what was relevant 5 years ago, pre-pandemic, may not be what's important today. So maybe it's not a 5-year plan, maybe it's a 3-year plan.
Yeah.
And maybe your organization is pursuing a whole new way of working through generative AI and ChatGPT, and maybe there's a 1-year plan, 1.5-year plan. And I love the way you said that, Claudia, around the what's missing. Maybe that's the better question to ask. Not the am I happy, but rather what's missing from the year.
Yeah. I also think the other thing, when you talk about making a 5-year goal, a 10-year goal, I'm actually doing the reflection on the spot. If I set a goal for myself that at the age of 30, I want to be a director, I've attached a timeline to it.
Mm-hmm.
And if I look back, I think parts of myself went on to autopilot. Okay, cool. Set the goal. Let's go. And I didn't stop and do the reflections yearly to hold myself accountable to how I was actually achieving that goal. To what extent to what expense was I achieving that goal? And so when I finally got to it and we're like, great, woohoo. And you have the moment to ask yourself, okay, but am I happy? And it's interesting because Claudia, what you shared of, questioning the relevance of the goal, it's the goal could be relevant even from a time frame perspective, but how are you checking in with yourself throughout that journey to make sure that you're achieving your goal? One, if it still makes sense for you, but two, in a way that respects your needs, your boundaries, your mental health, your emotional health, your physical health, all of that.
Yeah, because I've met people who are very ambitious and they've got this plan for themselves. They're going to move up this ladder, going to work for this organization, do this role, do that role. And you know what? Sometimes that's just how they are. And that plan works for them for the next 10, 15, 20 years, and that's great for them. But I would bet to say the majority of people are not like that. The majority of people aren't quite as ambitious, don't quite have things planned out as well. And I think it's very worthwhile to sit back and take a look when you're at maybe not your final milestone, but maybe at some critical path moments to say, does that still fit with me? Does that still make sense for me? Type of thing. Because why not? We all have to admit that as much as we don't like it, there's constant change going on around us. We have to adjust to what's going on around us, type of thing. Family situations arise. Your environment may change. You may move cities, countries. You never know. Things are thrown at you that you can't always control. So what you can control is how you respond to that. And for yourself, what does that mean going forward? What does your 5 plan look like after that?
And the other thing I'd love to offer to the people that don't have 5-year plans, because some of us don't think in those contexts. We fall into one job, we fall into another job, we fall into the next job. Someone thinks we're awesome and says, hey, come work for our team, especially if we've been with the company for a long time. Or we've had opportunities through the pandemic to jump around and work with other organizations. Have you had a moment to kind of sit and just kind of reflect on what your journey's been? It's lovely to be recognized with more money each time, but now might be a good time to kind of go, hey, what do I want to see next? What's filling my cup right now? What's not filling my cup right now? And that's a part of also that question around, am I happy? Even as an individual, am I showing up in the right way to the people I'm working with? Are they seeing me the light that I want them to see? Maybe they're not. Maybe I've taken a course over the past year where I'm learning to refine my leadership skills. Have I used those leadership? Have I used those skills that I've been on those courses? Because if you think about it, companies are investing a lot in us as people, let's say individual contributors. And we always talk about be a better leader. Well, okay, you've taken these courses, you've done the online stuff. How have you embedded it in the work you do? And again, I'm going to put on the thinking hat of a project manager. You get sent on these opportunities. Time is, let's face it, to be able to even attend a 2 or 3 day course is costly to the project. Now is a great time to kind of reflect and say, have I introduced that into the ways that I'm managing teams that I'm working with? That's other potential reflections. I'll share it that way.
Yeah, I'd also want to go back to the journey topic. I used to say this to people all the time, which it's kind of funny now that it's coming back up, is to focus on the journey, not the destination. And so if the destination is the goal, and in the thinking of finishing a year strong, doing the reflection, doing the work, it's focusing on the journey. What are you doing to get to that destination? Are you satisfied with your steps? Does it respect your boundaries? And really focus in on how you're achieving what you want to achieve and how that's making you feel, and then adjusting based on that reflection.
Yeah. The journey, I just think to some friends of mine that have, achieved great things in the corporate world, I don't know how much they actually reflect on their own journeys, because it's the accolade of, I have that title that's being celebrated. But I'll tell you, one of the particular I see her every so often, I've heard some not so positive things about their management style. And I will never, ever share with them because I don't think it's going to make a difference.
Right.
But I've heard stories where they make people cry.
And sometimes with the journey, you don't realize what your journey is because you're just in the thick of things. And sometimes you feel you have to do what you have to do just to kind of get the job done or move forward. And you don't realize what kind of path or what kind of journey you're going on.
But I think we're opening the door here. Maybe this is something new that we need to be talking more to our coachees about. But we always sort of set new, I'll call it new resolutions for the new year. How much are you reflecting on how you were in the workplace? How you made people feel in the workplace? How you performed in meetings in the workplace? What do you think of that person? And that's a hard thing to do because none of us want to look in the mirror.
Or be that fly on the wall to watch us, to watch ourselves. That's a hard thing to do.
Sometimes that also includes conversations with those individuals to get that candor. And even the thought of that could put people off to be like, not going to do that.
Not going to do it, but I'm wondering if it's something that we should be introducing in our practice. Because, we're talking about this, November reflection and ending the year strong. I can count on my fingers the number of times I've actually done that. And I think I'm going to actually do that this year. I am going to go into November and I'm going to do a reflection.
Oh, good for you.
I usually do mine in December over the holidays. And it starts with thinking through, what have I done this year? What has my journey been this year? And I'll think about accolades. I'll think about feedback people have provided. I'll also think about how I felt throughout the year.
Mm-hmm.
And I will never just look at work.
Oh, good for you.
I will look at my life holistically.
That's beautiful.
It starts with work because work takes up so much of your time right after sleep, hopefully. And when I think through what I've done at work, what my journey has been, what did I achieve? How did I make people feel? If you're a leader, how does my team interact with me? Do they show me positive signs that they trust me, that they respect me, that they enjoy working with me, things like that? And I will then take that and say, okay, great. What impact has that had on my personal life? When was the last time I met up with my friends? How much sleep am I actually getting? At the beginning of the year, you set those health goals. Are you walking every day for an hour? Have you worked out? What's your diet like, Misha? And in that reflection, I look at my whole life and I'll think about the positives of, okay, great. Where do I feel like I've had success? But then also, where have I left opportunities for myself this year? And how am I going to try and address those opportunities in the next year? And so it's never really like a full New Year's resolution, and that's how I'm starting strong. It's that growth mindset of, okay, what am I learning and how am I applying that learning so that I can keep elevating. It doesn't have to be, the cliche new year, new me. It's just, okay, how am I just keep going, but elevating as I go.
I think that's a really healthy thing to do.
Yeah.
The way you've said it.
Yeah. And I think it's like you said too, maintaining that growth mindset, right? It's not necessarily a new you. It's a continuation of you where you don't stop growing. You don't stop thinking about moving forward. It's just a continuation of what you've already started. So it's an ongoing great Misha going forward.
Fingers crossed.
I think it's a celebration of yourself.
Totally.
Right?
We ask clients all the time, how are you going to celebrate?
Yeah.
This is part of that.
That's true.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a celebration of yourself. And it's a celebration of, hey, I exist and I'm achieving and people, are here. I think the reason why November came up for me because performance reviews are going to be happening soon. So you have an opportunity. Again, it depends on how your company runs their cycle, but you do have an opportunity to tell your story. Little tiny anecdote. You guys know I was in that career panel and I was reflecting on the fact that I don't usually tell people I do that. I told my manager that I was going to be involved in that. And I was told, make sure that's on your performance review.
Interesting.
Right? It's outside of the corporation. It's outside of everything.
Yeah.
And there was a couple of other incidents where I've had a few people that I've asked to participate, either guest speakers or something. And I reminded them, make sure you have that on your performance review for this year. And they're like, I didn't even think of that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
we're not even like recognizing the things that we're doing as part of those conversations. And again, yeah, I'm giving it the work context, but there is that personal context too. Where have I showed up at my kids' events? Have I moved the dial in being present with my family,
Yeah.
with my partner? Did I remember to do that special thing my partner really likes me to do? Okay, I didn't maybe 11 months. Here's an opportunity to plan that special, date night.
The before that December reflection comes up for me, usually like October, November timeframe, if I'm in the work context thinking about the end of the year, I'm being really critical of what are my true priorities. Am I just trying to hit goals because we put them as December 31st?
Mm.
Do they still make sense? What conversations do I need to be having with my leader if they don't make sense? How do we adjust the flagpole, push it into the new year? Do we even still need to deliver this? And then how do I, as a leader, cascade that to my team?
I love the fact that you said that because it also reminds us if you don't feel comfortable to be having that conversation with your manager, take a moment to reflect. Why not?
Yeah, oddly enough, Misha, when you were talking about, year-end goals, December 31st, I had the vision of a long-distance runner, right? How they're just struggling stride after stride to cross that ribbon, cross that finish line, and then they just collapse as soon as they fall. And is that who we want to be? Think about it. Is that who we want to be? We just want to exhaust ourselves, get done what we have to get done, and then we just collapse and live in the moment and hopefully we can get up again for the next day. And the next day is the new year. Is that who we want to be? Where we're so burnt out and need to refuel.
Where you don't even have the time during the holiday break to do the reflection because all you're trying to do is recover.
Yeah. And then you're scrambling to get ready for the holidays, whatever that means for you and your family. Because that's not a relaxing time. At least it hasn't been in my household. There's always a lot going on. Usually Jan 2nd, you get to reflect and have a breath.
Well, and then you're coming back into the office
and you're starting all over again.
Yep.
Right?
It's go.
Go. And the other thing that I love the way that you both have shared those perspectives because you've been go for 10 months. And maybe some have been go for 1 to 2+ years. So where are you going to take that moment? Like, for anyone listening to this podcast, give yourself that afternoon, cup of coffee, reflection, cup of coffee, ask yourself the questions, listen to this podcast, give yourself that moment. I don't know, we all talk about mindfulness and mindsets and yoga and meditation. I wonder how many of us just kind of take a moment to be with our own thoughts.
Yeah.
I also want to talk about the timing of this podcast because, we're talking about holidays, right? We're talking about that last week or two in December. And this episode is landing before that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a reason. It's because we shouldn't do this and engage this right at the end of the year. Truthfully, we should be checking in with ourselves throughout the year.
And remember, zero in throughout the year when things aren't feeling right.
Sometimes, again, the trigger is, from a work perspective, the trigger is that performance review, right? Now we have to do a performance review. And it's actually the trigger that helps us reflect on how we feel about what we did. I mean, it's one thing to say, yep, check. I got this done, got that done. But is that really reflective as to how you felt about doing it, how you felt about going forward, doing the same type of things? And going back to that first question, are you happy? Right? Is this really where you wanted to be, what you wanted to do? So that's probably why we do the reflection at the end of the year. And I think too, as well, I'm going to throw it out there. I mean, Thanksgiving is the last quarter of the year as well. And Thanksgiving, that's when you, sit around, you give thanks for what you have. And sometimes people say, oh, I'm happy for my family, which is lovely. But do you ever really stop and think about what you're really thankful for?
Yeah. What does gratitude look like for you? Yeah. I'm going to go back to the metaphor of what fills your cup and what do you want to empty from your cup?
That's good.
What is it? What do we do with these thoughts in the new year? Any opinion on that?
I think we need to be honest with ourselves. To use your metaphor, Daniela, what did fill our cup? And make sure we have more of that. And what do we need to get? Because your cup can only hold so much, right? So what needs to come out of that cup? And sometimes it's a tough choice, right? There's some things that just don't make us happy, either relationships we've had or the whole work-life balance, it's responsibilities. I mean, while we all love responsibilities, you know how it is. The more responsibilities you take on, the more people give you. So is that where we want to be, right? Is there sometimes you have to say, you know what, stop. This isn't good for me. And reflect and pivot, readjust to really what does fill your cup. And that's a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to do because you can reflect upon yourself, but then I find it hard articulating it, letting your leader know, or even letting your team know that, you know what, this part doesn't make me happy. It's actually causing me more stress than it's worth, and either redirect, delegate, reassign, or even, make a career change. Who knows? But I think the articulating part makes it real. And that's what people struggle with.
The action.
Because now that you said it, it's out there. And people are going to interpret it the way they're going to interpret it. And you hope the message was clear and people understood what you wanted.
I think there's two things for me now that you've talked about it from that lens, Claudia. One is me being honest and declaring what I'm going to say no to going forward, acknowledging what I'm going to say no to, acknowledging what I'm going to say yes to, and being okay with the maybes. And then there's the action plan. And yeah, that becomes a resolution in the new year. But there's also the building up the confidence. There's also shift when I need to. How many things and how many outcomes happened because I was uncomfortable, I didn't use my voice over the year? How many outcomes were not within my own control? And vice versa, how many outcomes were out of my control, but I reacted to it in a way that wasn't beneficial to me? From a health perspective, stress perspective, what have you.
Yeah. Not everything's written in stone either, right? Right? We may want to choose to pivot, make a change. You know what? It may not have been the right pivot. And that's okay, right? You can adjust, take responsibility for it, right? Always take responsibility for your actions. I've always believed that. But just say, you know what? That wasn't the right decision. My journey took me down a path which didn't make sense to me. So we need to kind of pivot. And what does pivoting look like? And people will respect you for that. May not like it, but they should respect you for that. And then again, take responsibility for it and make sure that you're owning up to it.
You're giving light to what isn't necessarily stellar or achievable.
And not pointing fingers. And then any plan you come up with, make sure it's a fulsome plan. That if you let people down, figure out how you're going to recover and come up with a plan that comes out as a win-win for everyone as well.
I also think when you ask the question of what are you doing with these reflections in the new year, if I take a very inner approach, it's kind of dictating how I'm going to show up in the new year. So those reflections should be illuminating how, as an individual, I want to maybe change my approach to certain things. And so maybe throughout the year, I'm checking in with myself. If I recognize that I've had burnout, maybe I'm asking myself in the new year, okay, what should I prioritize? So while effectively managing my burnout. So I'm not just looking at priority, I'm looking at priorities and managing my burnout at the same time. If I feel I haven't had work-life balance, maybe the reflection is making myself aware. What are the signs that my work-life balance is being compromised? And then keeping an eye out for those throughout the year, that new year. If I feel like, I'm not taking time to acknowledge myself throughout the year, celebrate my achievements as they're coming, enjoying the journey, perhaps I'm planning more to acknowledge and celebrate my success throughout the year. And so those reflections I'm doing year end, they're informing and influencing how I'm going to show up for myself in the new year.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a really powerful way of framing it up, I think, because it's aligning back to what Claudia was saying about, being honest about, and owning up to where things haven't worked out, but then also finding or harnessing that energy to move it in a different direction. And I think, let's face it, we're human. We grow and learn through our mistakes, our failures, or even what we didn't succeed in the moment for whatever reason. But we want to refrain from blaming outside and rather taking ownership back and driving it forward. It may be easy for me to say, my manager held me back. Person X was better than me. Person Y had a different way of interacting and was more vocal. I can go and make all different statements about what the dynamics are around me in the corporate world. But at the end of the day, if person X is always voicing their opinion, how can I speak up? Is there an opportunity for me to take a course to learn how to project? Can I join Toastmasters in my organization and learn how to gain more confidence in my own voice? Is there training? Is there coaching I need to potentially do? I want to bring this forward to my manager. Oh, my manager doesn't support all of these different things. Okay, well, how do I build that business case going into these performance reviews? Sorry, I'm trying to get a little more tactical now as I think some of this stuff through. For listeners, what I think I'm trying to offer here in this little soliloquy is that those reflections become actual tangible activities to do in the new year. Have that conversation as you set your next year's objectives.
I love the example you gave about, oh, so-and-so got promoted and I didn't. What happened there? And rather than, because I've seen people say, oh, they're just, the pet of the manager or the pet of the leader, blah, blah, blah. They come up with other excuses. Take a look at to what skill set that person offers and say, hey, how can I develop that skill set? And take, again, growth mindset and just say, what do they have that I don't have? And to your point, then take that course, take that learning, talk to that individual. How did you come about to have this great skill set and run with it, right? And don't just say, well, I can never do that. Of course you can. If they could do it, you could do it. Why not? They may have had opportunities you're not aware of. And it doesn't hurt to chat with them or chat with your leader to say, how can I develop that skill set, or what's missing in my skill set that individual has that I don't have, and how can I build on it? Because sometimes you just need to look around you to say, hey, how come, not to do a comparison, but do a learning, a continuous improvement kind of activity to say, oh, hey, I want to do that. How do I get there? And use that person as a role model, if you will. There's nothing wrong with that.
I would take it even more basic. Go into your own LMS company system. What leadership courses have you not taken? What communication courses have you not taken?
Yeah.
What strategic thinking courses, design thinking? Your reflection may not be, what have I not achieved or achieved? Rather, what are you going to augment in your skill set through your own training availability? Right? And how are you going to, hey, let's finish the year strong. I'm going to book Friday afternoons for training. I'm not going to spend time, spilling the tea with person X on a call. Rather, I'm going to spend those 2 hours or hour taking some training.
Yeah. Yeah.
Little tangible activity may not be aligned to some broader goals, but at least, in the immediate term, there's something else to do.
Yeah. It's everything we're talking about is ownership and accountability.
Yeah.
How am I taking ownership of myself, of my development, of my opportunities, and holding myself accountable to it?
That's exactly it.
And I think too, sorry if you don't mind me saying, I'm going to do a little bit of a switch here. We'll talk about opportunities. How do you find those opportunities? And people forget that year-end usually involves some sort of year-end celebration, holiday party, Christmas party. Take advantage of those events where you're together with people you aren't normally together with, and just chat with them. If there's someone who you really appreciate, they really do appreciate saying, hey, tell me about what you did and what's going on here. Have a chance to talk to the leadership. This is why leadership goes to these events. It's because you do want to interact with the rest of the company that they don't get a chance to interact with. And I've seen it where you could talk to your C-suite and just say, hey, how did we come up with that strategy? What are we looking at for next year? We always have these town halls and these AGMs, and they're all very up here at the 30,000 foot level. But maybe you can actually have a chance, a bit of a one-on-one, even if it's only for 10, 15 minutes, to chat with the C-suite to see what's going on. And how does that help you understand where you can help with your own growth mindset to see, hey, where can all this stuff go for me? Don't lose sight of those opportunities. And if you're not comfortable talking to C-suite, definitely just talk to the director or manager of another department that you don't get a chance to talk with very often.
Talk to the person who got the promotion.
Yeah, talk to the person who got the promotion. Yes. That's
So
right.
what did they do? How did
Yeah.
they do?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So take advantage of those informal, non-structured times just to kind of chat people up because they will remember you, right? They will remember you.
Meaningful networking.
Networking is very powerful and it's all different venues too. So Divas, we've chatted quite a bit about opportunities, growth mindsets, finishing the year strong. What takeaways do you have? Misha, I'm gonna start with you.
Oh, lots of takeaways. I think if I had to look at it as a summary, it really starts with first carving out the time to sit with yourself and have a meaningful conversation, to identify what your achievements have been, what you feel proud of, and checking in to see if you're happy with the way you achieve things. And then from there, it's really, okay, what am I going to do about all of that next year? How am I going to change my approach where it might need to be changed and ensure that I am holding myself accountable to who I want to be and how I want to go up instead of just going on autopilot for years until I finally ask myself if I'm happy and I say no.
Love the way you said that. What that sparked for me is in that time that you've carved out, really go deep with what are you uncomfortable with? What isn't sitting well with you with the year that it's gone? And that's a hard thing to do, but ask yourself, what hasn't gone well? What am I not happy with? What am I uncomfortable with? And see if anything comes up for you. And the reason for that really is because maybe if you don't have an answer to that question, everything is great. But if you do have an answer to those questions, at least you've given those emotions, those thoughts, those feelings some air. And then you don't have to in that moment reflect and come up with some, but maybe it's something you table for another time. Because awareness is the first step.
Yeah. I loved your analogy about what fills your cup. If you're in a position where you can actually identify what really fills your cup and what makes you happy, and if you could add more to it, go for it, right? Go for it. And because as you're filling your cup with the good things that make you happy, the stuff that doesn't make you happy is going to flow out, right? But you have to be honest with yourself. Be really honest with yourself. And maybe, you're kind of stuck in a position because we all have mortgages to pay and all that kind of stuff. So maybe just put that on hold for a little bit. Reevaluate what fills our cup in a certain time frame, 6 months, a year, whatever makes sense to you. But really evaluate where you want to be. And if you know what, I'm here for now, but this isn't forever. Fill that cup. Just fill that cup.
Thanks for listening to The Coaching Divas. If you've enjoyed this episode, leave us a review and follow us on Instagram at The Coaching Divas.
Your ratings and reviews help more people like you find our podcast.
Don't forget to subscribe and share this episode with someone you think would love it.
Until next time, we are
Claudia Jones,
Daniela Velkovic,
and Misha Jethba, The Coaching Divas.
If you're going to coach, might as well coach like a diva.